Today I'm going to be talking to you guys about 5 of the best characters in Smash Ultimate that nobody really mains. Now do keep in mind this isn't talking about the very best characters in the entire game, because the vast majority of those characters a lot of people are maining, but instead some of the best characters in the game that I don't really see way too often, that a lot of people just kind of pick somebody else over this character. With this in mind, this is of course in my own opinion and from my own experiences, so please take everything as that. With that in mind, let's get started. The first character I'm going to talk about here is going to be Toon Link, and I feel like Toon Link is the one character that in a lot of people's mind just kind of got screwed in this game, where, you know, you can pick up Toon Link, but instead you could also pick up Link, or you could pick up Young Link, and in pretty much every case those characters are 100% better, so why would you ever pick up Toon Link? No, that's a really bad idea, you should just pick up one of the other characters. And I can kind of see where people are coming from. A character like Link has a lot more damage potential and a lot more potential to end off stocks, and a character like Young Link has a little bit more mobility, and also as well, some of his moves just seem to kind of work a little bit better in most situations, like his Nair, like his forward air, even like some of his smashes, and of course his arrows. But with that in mind, I feel like just because Link and Young Link are good, it doesn't necessarily mean that Toon Link is a bad character, or that Toon Link is just 100% worse than those other two in every single situation. I really don't buy that way too much. Toon Link by himself, I think as well, is a really great character in many situations. He's extremely fast, he does a ton of damage, he has a lot of combos like he did in the last game, and as well, I feel like he just has a lot of different moves that could be really good to play with. Essentially, if you actually compare the Links, you know, of course, Young Link and regular Link have a lot of very similar moves. Their forward air, their back air, their neutral air, those are all pretty much exactly the same. While if you look at someone like Toon Link, forward air is different, back air is a lot different, neutral air is a ton different. And while a lot of the situations, it seems like the Links are just a little bit better, there still is some good use out of these moves. These moves still aren't bad in any way. And I feel like he's one of those characters that people just say, hey, you know, there's a better version, so let's just never pick him. But I feel like there is quite a bit of merit in this character. As well, I want to mention right here that I believe that Toon Link's bombs are just, simply put, the best bombs out of all the characters. They lead to so many setups, lead to so much damage, so many kills. And as well, Toon Link actually has some of the best ways to get kills out of these characters, which is a little weird, but, you know, that's what I've been seeing in a lot of the situations. Overall, I think he's a character that a lot of people are kind of sleeping on, that I think is overall really good, and one that I would like to see a little bit more of in my own games. I know this next pick might seem a little bit weird, because you're probably thinking to yourself, hey, you know, I saw a ton of Crom mains in the first month of Ultimate. You know, it seems like everybody I knew swapped to Crom from whatever person they were playing. And essentially, Crom was just the cream of the crop character. But I'm going to say that right now, Crom's honestly one of those characters that I personally still believe is really good, but that the vast majority of people playing Crom have just kind of swapped off of. Probably mainly to Lucina, or to Ike, or even in some cases to Roy. Now, the thing about Crom is that he's a character that I think is extremely explosive. A lot more explosive than most people actually want to play. He's a character that has a ton of damage, that has a ton of range, that has really good frame data, that has a ton of kill power, that is pretty much good at almost everything. But he has just the worst recovery that I can possibly imagine. Maybe not the worst, but one of the worst. And especially for a character that everyone's believing is so good, is one of those things that just kept being abused again and again. And a lot of people eventually just kind of got sick of it. A lot of people eventually thought, hey, maybe this character isn't so great, and he just kind of eventually started falling off people's tier lists. People jumped off the bandwagon, essentially immediately onto another character like, I don't know, Wolf, or whoever the current best character is in that way. And Crom just kind of got ignored. But I feel like especially in the latest tournament in Frostbite, we've seen just how well Crom can still do. Yes, he's a character with a big flaw. Yes, he's a character that still as well, I guess, can get juggled, can get edge guarded. That can't have all that happen to him. But as we've seen by Soyo James, he's also a character that has all his benefits, that has all that range, that has all that damage, that has essentially just everything going for him except for that recovery. And I feel like as we've been able to see more of him, we've been able to realize that he is a very good, consistent character, and if you can play around his weaknesses, you can shine on his strengths. I feel like overall he's one of those characters that, honestly, in the future, may go up a ton in the tier list, may go down a ton in the tier list, but right now he's a character that I don't really see being played way too much anymore, that I think is very good. And while I personally believe that Roy might be a little bit better, we're seeing quite a bit more Roy players by, you know, not really seeing way too many Crom players, so that's why I put him here instead of Roy. The third best character that I really don't see pretty much anybody main anymore is going to be Mewtwo. And Mewtwo, I'm honestly going to say, even in Smash 4, didn't have that many mains. He was a character that was really strong. I think like top 10, top 15, you know, all the way up there. Really great character, had quite a bit of results, but he just kind of was hard to get into. He was a super hard glass cannon that was very risky and you had to be extremely good at to consistently get results at. So yeah, that doesn't really add up to most players, so they didn't really pick him up. Moving on to Ultimate, in a lot of ways it seems like he got a little bit worse. In some ways he got better at stuff like juggling, got better at stuff like edge guarding, got better at stuff like camping, but as well, his combos got a little bit worse, some of his hitboxes got a little bit worse, and his tail hitbox got a little bit bigger, which also kind of hurts him. So I guess it kind of evens out a little bit, but a slight negative. With that in mind, I think even just looking at the vast majority of Mewtwo players, they thought to themselves, hey, this is an extremely hard character, you know, he's taking all this effort, and he got slightly worse, so maybe I'll just jump off this ship and go into someone else. For a lot of these players, we've been seeing them move on to characters like JoeK, onto characters like Pichu, onto characters like Peach. Still highly technical characters, but ones that are just, simply put, a little bit easier to get into, or most importantly, feel a little bit better. Now, with all this in mind, while there are some other big glass cannon characters in this game that I guess can, in some people's minds, replace Mewtwo, I feel like he's still a character that has a ton of potential, and SDX even has been showing him a decent way how much he can shine. And while I don't believe that he's necessarily a top tier character in this game, as people were probably thinking at the beginning of the game's release, I still think he has a lot of stuff going for him. He has huge damage, he has big combos, he has a large projectile, probably the best projectile in the entire game, a good recovery, a good edge guarding game, and a good tale of ways to end off stocks. He's a character that might be a little bit less consistent than all the characters in this list, and a character that, you know, might be a little bit harder to get into, but I feel like he's one of those characters that in the long run, if somebody picks up and if someone really learns to the best of their potential, they'll get a lot of results out of him, especially if they can, you know, maximize his spacing, maximize his speed, maximize all the stuff he's good at. Will we get a person that actually does that? I don't know. I feel like he's one of those characters that could really use a player to do that, and overall a character that isn't really being played that much, but I think is honestly really, really good. Moving on to PacMan as my fourth pick, he's a character that I really didn't think I would ever be putting on here, but, you know, my eyes have definitely been opened by the Japanese player T in the last Frostbite tournament, essentially just the last Super Major. Now, the thing about PacMan that I didn't really seem to understand for myself is that he has gotten a lot better in this game. And while I still don't think like he's, you know, a top tier type pick, and maybe might not even be a high tier, I think probably is, but maybe not even be that, he's a character with just a ton of potential in this game now. Now, overall, PacMan's been a character that's kind of weird, that a lot of people haven't really figured out how to play versus, that can kind of jank a certain amount of games from people, but in Ultimate, I feel like he actually has potential to be pretty good consistently. Now, this is mainly due to a few things. The first one being that PacMan has a lot easier time of charging his fruit. It overall just charges way faster now. You can get to the bell way faster, or get to, you know, the apple way faster, and it makes it he can spam out his projectiles a lot better. Now, that's great for PacMan because he's always wanted to do that, but add this to the fact that now you can just run around a lot easier, position yourself a lot easier, and as well, put down that hydrant, play that defensive game, throw out a fruit, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. You can just apply so much pressure while actually being on the defense, switching to offense for a little bit, and then going back on the defense. It's a thing that very different characters can actually do, and one really unique to PacMan that I think adds a lot to this character. Now, another thing about to mention about this one is that a lot of his aerials actually just got straight up better. A few of them, like forward air, seem to just combo a little bit better than the last game. Down air actually has some potential to kill now, which is just weird. And just overall, his aerials just kind of seem to actually work a lot better now. Now, they still aren't the best in the game. You know, they still aren't Crom level aerials or some like Inkling level aerials, but they work now. And I'm going to say, honestly, there's some of the better-ish aerials in the game that are very consistent in what they do. All of them have their very basic job, and they work at that job every single time. Now, the final thing I'm going to mention right here is that PacMan also got a huge buff to his grab. Now, in Smash 4, PacMan's grab, you know, he'd send it out, he'd take it back in, and it just took 5 billion years for that thing to work. It really wasn't that great of a move, in pretty much any situation. But in Ultimate, his grab is so much faster. His grab being faster as well helps him a ton because he's a character that in the past could kind of just be shielded against a lot. You know, he throws out the hydrant, he throws out the fruit, and he throws out his aerials, and you can just kind of shield all those and then just play really defensive yourself, wait for your shield to come up, and then, you know, continue to play against him. But against PacMan in this game, while you still can to a degree do that, he can actually grab through that decently well. Tether's got a decent amount better in this game as well, just because how shields work, and, you know, while it's still not a great tether, and while it's still not a great grab, it's better than what it was, and this added to everything else I think makes PacMan quite a bit better of a character. Now, if he's going to move all the way to high tier, I don't really know if that's going to happen, but I feel like he's a character that not very many people are playing at all, that has a lot of potential, and that if you can potentially max out, would be really good in the future against at least a lot of different players. Finally, talking about Greninja, I think this is the character that Japan has kind of seen as a really great character, you know, potentially a top tier for quite a while, but we in the US have kind of been sleeping on him quite a bit. And I think it's because Greninja is a character that is really a little awkward to get into. He's not a character that you can just, you know, jump in there, throwing on offensive aerials. You have to be quite patient. You have to play around a startup lag and it can be kind of awkward to do. But if you can actually maximize everything that he's good at, I think we've honestly been able to see from Leia just how much potential this character has. He's even able to beat one of the top players in the US using a character that we didn't really think in the past was all too great. Now, honestly, what is so great about Greninja? Well, first off, he has great speed, he has great agility, he can dash dance really well, he can move around the map really nice, which is just, in general, a really nice thing. As well with this, he has great poking tools. He has stuff like down tilt, forward tilt, jab, which are all pretty decent. Continuing from here, and more importantly, he has some amazing combo starters for a character like this. Most of the time, some longer-ish range characters don't have too many combo starters, but he has stuff like down tilt, dash attack, up tilt, nair, all leading into grab, a ton of different starters that can lead into 30, 40%, and then when you actually finally get some percent as this character, well, guess what? You have stuff like down tilt into up smash, or dash attack into forward air to end stocks. He just has so many ways to build up damage, he has so many ways to end off stocks, he's so consistent when played perfectly. I feel like he's honestly one of those characters that if you put a lot of time into and learn every little nitty-gritty thing about him, you're going to, in the long run, get a lot of results. Now with that said, it will take a lot of effort, he will be kind of an awkward character for a long time, but he kind of fits every playstyle. If you want to go pretty aggressively, you can. Now of course you can't just mash buttons at your opponent's face and you have to use some calculated aggression, but he can do that. If you want to focus on edge guarding a lot, he can definitely do that with stuff like back air, neutral B, counter, side B. Amazingly, he can do all that. If you want to juggle people, you can do that pretty well with up air. Really whatever playstyle you want to focus on, offense, defense, whatever thing within that, he can kind of do that. And while it might be, quite a hassle to eventually learn him, I think in the long run it'll definitely be worth it. And I think in quite a few months, we might start seeing a lot more of this character. But if you want to pick him up right now, I definitely recommend it. I see a lot of potential in him, and one of my personal favorite characters to watch and to play. And there you guys go, the top 5 characters, at least my own personal opinion, that I believe are some of the best characters that people don't really pick up way too often. Now, as I mentioned earlier, of course, there are, better characters on the tier list, definitely, and most of these characters are probably in high tier or high mid tier. But these are characters that I believe, really do have a lot of potential, that are pretty darn good. Most people don't really give the time of day, so I wanted to talk about him. Anyways, with that all said, though, guys, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, check my screen right now as a card for a playlist of more Smash Ultimate videos like this. Leave a comment down below if you felt like I missed a certain character, or, I'm definitely probably going to miss certain characters, so please tell me down below, and especially why. With that all said, guys, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe to see more videos like this in the future. And as always, guys, have a smashing day.